I'm Courtney Gilbert. I'm the curator of visual arts at Sun Valley Museum of Art.
I'm Kristen Poole. I'm the artistic director at the Sun Valley Museum of Art, and it was my great pleasure to work on this project with Courtney and the other program directors at the museum.
The exhibition that we have up this spring is called Free Play. This big idea project is exploring the idea that free play helps people unleash creativity, that it helps drive innovation, that it allows for experimentation, and that it's also a way to build social relationships and build community.
We're really lucky to have a great number of works in this exhibition by very important 20th century artist, a man named Isamu Noguchi, who was a sculptor. He grew up in the United States, but spent a lot of time in Japan, and was working with Constantine Brancusi and was really interested in Brancusi and modernism's ideas around simple organic form and geometric shape, which was a really sort of fundamental idea around modernism that artists were exploring at the time. And so this idea that Noguchi had that sculptural objects, and particularly sculptural places in public, could be places that invite people in to interact with one another. We have a model in the exhibition that is a bronze model of something called Play Mountain that Noguchi proposed for Central Park, actually, in New York City.
A few years ago, the director of snow sports at Sun Valley Resort, Tony Parkhill, saw an exhibition devoted to Noguchi's playscapes. And that exhibition led him to return to the Valley and to work with his designers and terrain park builders at Sun Valley Resort to redesign Sun Valley's terrain parks for skiers and snowboarders, incorporating some of Noguchi's ideas and aesthetics. And I think that you can really see those connections visually in a beautiful selection of photographs that we have by the local photographer Tal Roberts.
In Tal Roberts' photographs of the snow park in Sun Valley, you can see some of Noguchi's ideas at play. There's a lot of convex and concave forms that are made visual by those photographs. But later in his life, Noguchi incorporated a number of the sort of traditional ideas that we think about when we think about playgrounds. He used slides and swing sets and climbing gyms in a number of his models. There's a lot of red that is used in Noguchi's forms and that is in parallel with a lot of the other modernist artists that are included in this exhibition. The primary color usage is really important.
In addition to Noguchi, a number of 20th century artists were also working with the idea that art could be playful, that art could be interactive, and that art could be used to create social engagement. And we were able to include in this exhibition a number of painted wooden toys that were made by a leading figure of modernism in both Europe and South America in the early 20th century, Joaquín Torres-García. Torres-García was born in Uruguay, but spent his career working in Spain and in Paris, where he was very active in avant-garde circles, and he embraced a geometric style of abstraction that came to be known as constructivism. In the early 20th century, Torres-García worked as a teacher at a school in Barcelona. And one of the ideas that he came away from that experience with was that play is fundamental to childhood development and education. And in response to that experience, he decided to design a line of wooden toys, painted wooden toys that embrace his constructivist aesthetic. They're very geometric in form, they use simple shapes, and they're toys that are meant to be manipulated and rearranged that invite children to both experiment with them and create their own forms, while at the same time they develop knowledge about the world around them. We were able to borrow a number of toys that Torres-García made at the beginning of the 20th century for this exhibition, and then we also obtained a set of contemporary reproductions, which we have out for visitors to play with when they come into the museum. In the 1930s, Torres-García decided to return to Uruguay, where he established a school, the Taller Torres-García, that was instrumental in training an entire generation of South American artists in the language of modernism and abstraction. One of his most well-known students was a sculptor and painter named Gonzalo Fonseca. Fonseca is probably best known for his sculptural work. We are lucky to have two paintings in the exhibition. You see in these paintings that Fonseca embraced the constructive aesthetic that he was studying at the Taller Torres-García. He uses the grid structure, that was part of Torres-Garcia's constructivism and fills his grids with these simple, heavily outlined forms that almost function as symbols. And even the palette in the paintings is very similar to the palette that Torres-Garcia used in his designs for toys. Coincidentally, Fonseca, who moved to New York in the 1950s, became very good friends with Isamu Noguchi. And like Noguchi, he also designed spaces for interactive and social play. And so we have photographs from his archives of monuments that he created that invited people to move around them and over them and through them. We have a drawing of an unrealized plaza he planned for New York City, where he planned to insert sculptural forms and kind of interrupt the space in a way that invited people to interact with his sculptures in a social setting.
Tucker Nichols is one of my favorite artists working on the West Coast at this moment. He is a contemporary artist whose works are joyful, they're colorful, they're accessible, but they're also complicated. They have complicated ideas behind them. Tucker's interested in making you stop and see, and translating everyday forms, things that we see on a regular basis or we think we know, and transferring them into simple shapes. Tucker is a student of many, many things, but was a graduate student, I believe, in Chinese history, and so became very, very familiar with Chinese calligraphic line, and you see the use of fat line and bold black outline in a lot of Tucker's drawings. Tucker works in multiple mediums like many 21st century artists. Tucker invites us to play with two pieces of his. One is a piece called Starfield Simulator, where you can manipulate forms and colors underneath a overhead projector. Haven't seen one of those in a long time. And change the image on the wall. And then the other piece is a piece called Boomtown. And in Boomtown, we invite you to actually stage a little excavation project, tip part of this sculpture over, put it in a bin, and then rearrange it in your own form. Boomtown is based on notions that town cityscapes are a cumulative process over many, many decades that involve many different kinds of people, not just architects, but architects and city planners and business people and random street planning and geography. And over many, many decades, a cityscape becomes known to us. It's sort of a project of many, many, many people.
As part of the exhibition, we commissioned a Seattle-based sculptor, Matt Sellars, to design an interactive play sculpture. It's called Ruta Alternativa, alternate route. It was inspired in part by an experience he had hiking in the deserts in the Southwest. And so he designed a sculpture that invites people to crawl through it, to move through the spaces, making choices as they move through it. It includes a game table where visitors are invited to sit and play a game of checkers. There are spots where children can sit and draw at little tables. In addition to the play sculpture, which Matt built specifically for this exhibition, he has lent a selection of sculptures from his fine art practice that he's made over the last decade or so. And they're really beautiful wooden objects, many of which are designed to be manipulated by visitors.
It's kind of interesting and weird to come into a museum place and invite you to touch, but we are excited to be able to do that. And I think it opens up a very 21st century art question, and that is, who is the artist? What constitutes the artist in the artwork? And is the artwork less of an artwork if others participate in its manipulation and in its change, and it becomes a different form? So all of those questions are worth thinking about as you come in. We're excited to invite you back in. Please join us, come into the museum, and consider those ideas as you walk around and you goof around in our museum space.